Hello, this is Dr. Natalie Lenore Blackman coming back to you with Matters of the Heart. And we have stepped into the fire element season, or the heart and the small intestine season, the summer, or the summer of love, as I like to call it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the fire element as we just kind of jumped right into the spiritual aspect of the heart. But I would like to also get into the physical aspect of the heart as well, and what we want to begin incorporating into this season. And one of the greatest things that I found when I began practicing traditional Chinese medicine was the fact that you want to eat according to the seasons. You know, in traditional Western civilization or culture, we eat the same things all year round. And one of the worst, newest trends that I have noticed in the last couple of years is people ingesting bone broth throughout the entire year. And bone broth itself is what's called very heavy. It's a salt element. It is meant to sink into the body and to nourish the kidneys. So it's meant to go down into the roots of the body, which are the kidneys. And we want to nourish the kidneys during the winter season, okay? It's a yin element, and yin is heavy, it's water. It's nourishing, and so bone broth is heavy water filled with sodium or salt coming from the bone marrow, and that's meant to sink into the body. We do not want to do bone broth in the spring or the summer. And if we begin it in the fall, you would want to do it in the middle of the fall. And you don't want to do it in the spring or the summer because we're trying to allow that yin that's been anchored deep in the body and the roots with the kidneys. So yin and yang are supposed to awaken in the spring and come out, begin to come up and out of the body like a sprout. We talked about those little seeds sprouting, dying to self, right? So we could produce a harvest. And then yang is going to help bring forth the plant or the fruit during summer, okay? So yang is a masculine element. It is a strong element. It's energetic. It has to do with expansion, with growth, with creativity, activity. When you think about summer, what do you think about? Most people, I think about vacations and swimming. And, I think about biking, of course, biking and hiking and just being outside. So yang wants to do that. It wants to come outside of the body. And so we should be producing more energy in the summer. If you're a person that feels exhausted during summer, then that means you're yang deficient, okay? And that yang deficient needs to be corrected or nourished within the kidney element. That can also be called adrenal fatigue. A lot of people deal with chronic fatigue. Chronic fatigue comes through adrenal fatigue. The adrenal glands are hardly ever mentioned in traditional medicine. I learned that in vet school. I watched how they ignored the adrenal glands. Even in veterinary medicine, we address Addison's and Cushing's disease because those are very large expressions of adrenal disease. But outside of that, it's very rarely mentioned, and it's very rarely ever mentioned in the human traditional medicine. But if you're tired during the summer, that is a yang deficiency, okay? And we can work on that this summer. But the winter is when you're going to really want to crank up your work on your kidney element and the adrenal element, okay? So during the summer, we want to eat to lighten the load on our body. We don't want our body to be overwhelmed with digesting food. That's something for the winter time when it's cold and damp and we're inside and we're not doing a lot of activity. So summertime is reserved for the things that are blooming in the garden, right? So sprouts, spring types of lettuces, anything green, really. I mean, like collards are a little heavy for summer. They're more of a spring or a cold weather season. But you want to eat a lot of greens. You want to eat a lot of vegetables, not a lot of root vegetables. Root vegetables like carrots and sweet potatoes. Those are reserved more for the fall and the winter season. Some spring you can do, and you can still eat carrots. I'm not saying you can't, but we want to focus on what is growing in our garden right now, okay? And if you're working along with me planting a garden, then it makes this so much easier, okay? And so we want to think about cooler foods. Mung beans are awesome. Watermelon, lemons, and limes. Sprouts we talked about. Mint is excellent to put on any of the food. Horseradish is growing at this time of year. And all of the types of peppers are growing this time of year. You've got your squashes. I would do the summer squash, of course, and but we want to take it easy on the heavy meats, the eggs, grains. They're heavy; those are meant for more winter season, and really focus on simple preparations. Okay, so sautéing is reserved for winter time. You can still saute. This isn't a religious process where if you get outside the line, you're going to be condemned. It's not that at all. We're trying to change patterns of how we live, patterns of our lifestyle, so that each year we grow and mature and learn more, and our bodies are healthier and they're operating the way that we were created. And so we talked a little bit about the foods. I wanted to talk a little bit about the heart and some common imbalances. We said the heart houses what's called the shin or the spirit. Now, in Chinese medicine, the mind and the spirit are one. But we know, according to the scripture, that the mind, will, and the emotions are in the soul, and the shin is separate, okay? But according to how all of this information was put together, we're going to say that the heart and the mind are together in just as we're talking about imbalances, okay? Really, because soul spirit wounds, right? If the soul is affected, then the spirit is also going to be affected, and that's the heart. So general symptoms of heart-mind imbalances may be scattered and or confused mind, excess laughter or no laughter. The fire element represents joy, and so we're going to talk a lot about joy this season. But lack of joy shows you've got a very serious imbalance going on in that heart element, and that's probably the soul and the spirit, soul and spirit trauma. And we'll want to go in and we're going to practice uprooting that. A very pale face or a very bright cheeks like rosacea, that shows you that you have a heart imbalance. The heart opens up into the tongue, and so any issues related to your tongue can be connected to the heart. The gums can be connected to the heart. They can also be connected to the stomach, but the cheeks are directly linked to the heart as well. Speech problems such as stuttering, confused speech, those would go with a heart imbalance, okay? Those are usually phlegm in the pericardium channel, okay? Depression. We're going to talk about depression, mental illness, loss of memory, poor circulation, weak spirit, aversion to heat. Oh my goodness. Heart fire excess. I deal with that. I think a lot of us can say we deal with that, right? Night sweats, or just when you get these hot flashes, we're going to work on all of that. That's not something that should be normal for us. Even in the aging process, it should not be normal. So we are trying to reverse these things and or correct them or prevent them, okay? So a couple of things that we started in spring to form habits were the drinking of hot lemon water first thing in the morning before our tea or our coffee or our breakfast. That opens up the liver and the gallbladder and also prepares the digestive tract. The digestive tract, or the small intestine, is directly linked to the heart, so I would say continue that practice. It's actually something that we can continue year-round, one of the few things that are recommended to be continued year-round. And in the evenings, we were diluting apple cider vinegar and drinking before bed. And this cools gallbladder damp heat, cools the stomach, and calms the mind. In fact, apple cider vinegar diluted has been used to treat depression. So if a person is experiencing some depression, they can drink a diluted apple cider vinegar up to 3 times a day, and that will help relieve some of that mental cloudiness or bluesiness that comes out of the gallbladder and the heart element. Also, we know soul spirit wounds, right? So we want to go in and get those roots out. And we're going to talk more about depression as we go. But today I wanted to add something, and that would be, as we begin summer, let's think about juices, okay? Just doing 1 to 2 fresh juices a week. If you don't have a juicer, I highly recommend purchasing one. But you can also buy juices. There are not many places around Birmingham that I recommend for fresh juice other than Clean Juice. They use organic vegetables, and they have a cold press system so that preserves all the nutrients of your juice. And in fact, I've been trying to incorporate a 1-day juice fast about every 2 weeks now, starting about a month and a half ago. And you can order that online or call ahead and they'll have it prepared for you. And you could do a 1-day juice fast once a week. You could do it once a month. You could do a 3-day juice fast once a month as we go into summer. But that is something wonderful that I would love for us to incorporate for the body. And I would like us to incorporate one thing for the heart element that's housing the shin, the spirit, and also the mind, the soul, and the spirit. And that is to develop a habit of thankfulness. So we can develop an attitude of gratitude. We said the heart is an expression of joy. And joy is directly linked to remembering the things that have happened to us for our good, okay? Remembering the times when God came through for us, remembering the time a situation worked out in our favor. And so I want us to get into that habit of thankfulness. And the most common practice is to write these things down, because writing is more important for the mind than typing. But in the evening before you go to bed, to just make a list of the things that you were thankful for from that day. And they could be the smallest things. It can also be the difficult things. That's what I'm in a practice of. I like to write down the things that were hard for me and to give thanks for them, because I know that they're going to make me grow. So let's add an attitude of gratitude to our summer sessions and we will see a fruitful harvest of joy.